Before we start the video, please like and subscribe our channel for more videos like this. Now, start the video. It was 2:47 a.m. when the dispatch came through. I remember the exact time because I'd just been staring at the digital clock above the radio console, waiting for the night to end. It had been unusually quiet. No crashes, no overdoses, no domestic calls. Just the soft hum of the ambulance's heater and the muffled sound of rain hitting the windshield. My partner, Marla, was half asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window, breathing slow and steady. Then the radio crackled. Unit 714, respond to a medical emergency, possible cardiac arrest. 314 Sycamore Lane, caller is a minor. That detail made my gut tighten. Copy that, I said, grabbing the receiver. ETA 5 minutes. The address was on the outskirts of town, a place where old homes leaned into each other like drunks at last call. I remember the street. Sycamore Lane was narrow, lined with dying trees that always seemed to bend toward the road. Even before we arrived, something about it felt wrong. Marla woke up, rubbing her eyes. A kid called it in. Yeah, I said. Cardiac arrest. Middle of the night. Parents, she asked. Didn't say. We turned off the main road and into darkness. The streetlights here had long since burned out, and the rain made everything shimmer in the high beams. When we finally spotted the house, a squat, peeling blue structure at the end of the lane. The front door was wide open, and a light flickered from somewhere inside. Marla looked at me. Are you getting that weird feeling again? I nodded. Yeah. Let's make it quick. We grabbed the jump bag and defibrillator and ran through the rain. The front steps were slick, the wood soft underfoot. I shouted, EMS, but no one answered. The sound of the rain filled the silence, heavy and constant. Inside, the house smelled like damp wood and something faintly metallic, blood, maybe. The living room was cluttered with old furniture and children's toys scattered across the floor. A television flickered on static in the corner. That's when we saw him. A man in his mid-40s lay on the living room floor, shirtless, eyes half open. His skin had a gray tint, lips faintly blue. Kneeling beside him was a little boy, maybe 9 years old, his hands trembling as he pressed down on the man's chest. Sir, step back, I said gently, rushing forward. We're here to help. The boy didn't answer. He just kept pushing on the man's chest, mechanical, silent. I placed my hand on his shoulder. It's okay, buddy, you did great. Let us take over. His hands fell away, limp. Marla began chest compressions as I checked for a pulse. Nothing. I started ventilation, then grabbed the defibrillator. Charging, 200 joules. I said, clear. The man's body jerked. Nothing. We cycled again, compressions, shocks. Nothing. After 20 minutes, the ECG showed a flat line. He was gone. Marla sighed and leaned back on her heels. Time of death, 3:14 a.m. The boy was sitting on the couch now, knees pulled up, eyes glassy. He didn't cry, didn't even blink much, just stared at the man's body. I crouched beside him. Hey, kiddo. I'm Ethan. What's your name? He looked at me, voice barely a whisper. That's my dad. I'm really sorry, I said. You did a good job calling us. Okay, you tried to help him. He blinked once. I didn't call you. I frowned. What do you mean? We got a call from this address. The boy shook his head slowly. I don't have a phone. Marla and I exchanged a look. I went to the radio and confirmed the dispatch. Yeah, 314 Sycamore Lane. Caller identified as a male child, approximately 10 years old. The dispatcher had recorded background, breathing and muffled words before the line cut out. But this boy swore he didn't call. We checked the house for another phone. None. Landline disconnected. Cell service here was spotty at best. We even looked for a neighbor. Nothing for half a mile in either direction. And then came the second strange thing. When the coroner's team arrived and started checking the body, they noted the man had been dead for at least 2 hours before we got there. Marla looked at me, eyebrows raised. How's that possible? He was still warm when we started CPR. I didn't have an answer. The boy sat there still, staring at the doorway. Before we left, I asked him, "Is there anyone we can call for you?" "Your mom, a relative." He shook his head. "Mom went away last year." "Okay, we'll take you somewhere safe for now." He didn't argue, didn't cry, just stood up, still barefoot on the wooden floor, and followed us out into the rain. I remember buckling him into the back of the ambulance. He turned to look at me, and for the first time his voice had emotion in it. "You shouldn't have come." It sent a shiver straight through me. "Why's that, buddy?" He stared ahead, eyes distant. "He doesn't like visitors." That was the start of it. The call that shouldn't have happened. The boy who didn't make the call. And the man who'd been dead long before we arrived. But the strangest part, when I checked the logs the next morning, the call record had vanished. No recording, no entry, nothing. Dispatch had no trace of it ever being made. Just a blank space between 2046 and 2:48 a.m. I didn't sleep that morning. After we dropped the boy off at social services, I went back to the station, showered, and sat at my desk, replaying everything in my head. I couldn't shake the sound of the rain against that broken house, the way the boy had said, "He doesn't like visitors." It echoed like a bad refrain. When the shift ended at 7 a.m., I pulled up the dispatch logs on the terminal. Every call is supposed to be time-stamped, archived, and stored. Even prank calls leave traces. But when I searched 314 Sycamore Lane, nothing came up. No voice recording. No transcript. No dispatch ticket. It was like we'd never been sent there. Marla came in with 2 cups of coffee, tossed one in front of me. "You're still thinking about that kid?" "Yeah," I said. "Have you ever seen a call vanish like that?" She frowned. "Sometimes dispatch misfiles stuff, not with a recording gone. Those get archived." She sipped her coffee. "Ethan, let it go. We get weird nights. That house was just one of them, but I couldn't. Because if the man had been dead for hours, someone or something had still made that call." Later that day, I went to the hospital to drop off the medical reports. Curiosity got the better of me, and I asked one of the nurses where the boy had been placed. She said, "They transferred him to child services this morning." Poor thing barely said a word. I nodded, thanked her, and walked back to the ambulance bay. Rain had started again, thin and cold, the kind that feels like it's seeping through your bones. That's when my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. "You came back." I froze. I typed, "Who is this?" No reply. Marla came out of the bay door just then. "You good?" "Yeah," I said quickly, pocketing the phone. "Just thought I saw something." I didn't tell her. I didn't know how to, because the timestamp on that message said 3:14 a.m., the exact time we'd called the man's death. The coroner's report arrived 2 days later. I picked it up on my next shift. The cause of death, massive myocardial infarction. Estimated time of death, 12:02 a.m. Toxicology clean. No drugs, no alcohol. But at the bottom of the report was a note scribbled in pens. Unusual liver pattern. Body reposition postmortem. That meant someone had moved him after he died. I called the coroner, a man named Dr. Reeves. We'd worked together for years. He sounded tired, his voice low and uneasy. Yeah, I remember that case. The bruising was off. Blood had pooled on the left side, but he was found flat on his back. Someone flipped him, maybe an hour after he died. I asked, "You think the boy did it?" Reeves paused, doubted. The kid's too small. Whoever moved him was stronger. But there was no one else in the house, I said. He hesitated. Then maybe your timeline's wrong. You're saying he wasn't dead? No, he said quietly. I'm saying maybe he didn't stay that way. A week later, I was cleaning out the rig when I found something that shouldn't have been there. Tucked behind the jump bag strap, a photograph. It was soaked and crinkled from water, but I could still make out the image. The boy, sitting on the same couch, but in the photo, he wasn't 9. He looked maybe 5 or 6, and beside him was a woman, probably his mother. She had the same pale eyes he did. And behind them, standing just out of focus, was the man we'd tried to resuscitate, except something was wrong with his face. His expression was distorted, like he'd been caught mid-yell. His eyes looked wild, furious, even. There was a date scribbled in pen on the back, June 14th, 2018. The last good day. That was 7 years ago. I couldn't leave it alone. On my next day off, I drove back to Sycamore Lane. The house was still there. Police tape fluttering on the porch. The front door had been boarded up, but I could still smell the same damp, metallic scent in the air. I sat in the car for a while, listening to the rain. Part of me hoped someone would come out. A detective, a neighbor, anyone. But the street was silent. Finally, I got out, walked up to the tape, and peered through a gap in the boards. The furniture was gone now, the walls stripped bare. But on one wall, written in what looked like charcoal or soot, was a single line, "He wouldn't stay down." My stomach turned. I stepped back, heart pounding. That's when I noticed a figure standing at the far end of the lane. A boy in a raincoat, watching me. I blinked, squinting through the drizzle. He turned and walked into the trees. "Hey!" I shouted, stepping forward. Wait, but when I reached the edge of the woods, there was no one there. Just mud and silence, and the sound of rain dripping from the branches. Back at the station that night, I finally broke protocol. I called the dispatcher who'd been on shift that night, an older woman named Janet. She'd been doing this job for decades. I asked, "Do you remember a call from Sycamore Lane about 2 weeks ago?" There was a long pause on the line. Then she said, "That address again." "Again?" I said, "What do you mean?" She exhaled. "We've gotten calls from that address before. Years apart. Always around 3 a.m. Always the same thing. A child's voice asking for help. We send units, and there's never anyone there. The house has been abandoned since 2018, I think." My throat went dry. 2018. I repeated. "Are you sure about that?" "Positive," she said. "The house caught fire. The family died. Father, mother, little boy." Tragic story. I sat there in silence, gripping the phone, because 2018 was the same year on the back of that photo. June 14th, 2018. The last good day. I didn't tell anyone after that. Not Marla, not Reeves. Who would believe me? I shredded the photo, deleted the strange text, and tried to move on. But some nights, when the rain starts up and the city quiets down, I swear I still hear a faint voice through the radio. A child's voice, soft. He's awake again. And then silence. Every damn time, the clock reads 3:14 a.m. The first sign that something was wrong came 3 nights later on a routine transfer run. It was the kind of call every paramedic could do half asleep. Elderly, patient, mild chest pain, hospital to hospital handoff. Marla was driving. I sat in the back, checking the vitals and paperwork. Everything was fine until the monitor blinked. Once. Twice. Then it cuts to static. The ECG trace flattened, replaced by a flickering digital noise that shouldn't have existed. I tapped the screen, thinking it was a bad connection. Nothing. Just static and a faint, high, pitched whine in the background, almost like a whisper trapped in the signal. Marla, are you seeing this? I called. She looked at the rearview mirror. The monitor? I froze. Across the top of the screen, where the patient's name should have been, new text appeared, letter by letter, SE-34, and I felt my stomach drop. Ethan. Marla called again. What's wrong? I blinked. The letters vanished. The normal ECG trace came back. The patient was fine, calm, eyes closed. Nothing, I muttered. Just a glitch. But my pulse didn't slow for the rest of that run. Back at the station, I decided to test the equipment. I connected the monitor to the diagnostics port. No errors, perfect function. Yet, when I checked the system clock, it read 03:14 a.m., always that time. No matter what I did, the timestamp wouldn't move. Marla leaned over my shoulder. You look like you're about to throw that thing out the window. Doesn't make sense. I muttered. The internal clock's frozen. She laughed softly. Maybe it's haunted. Not funny. She stopped smiling. Ethan, are you still thinking about that house? I didn't answer, because I was. Every night, 2 nights later, it happened again. Another quiet shift. Rain. The city half asleep. Then the radio crackled to life. Unit 714, respond to medical emergencies. 314 Sycamore Lane. Possible cardiac arrest. I froze. Marla turned to look at me slowly, her eyes wide. Did you hear that? I asked. She nodded, pale. Tell me that's a joke. Dispatch repeat address, I said into the mic. Silence. Then Janet's familiar voice. 714. Negative. No active call for your unit. I stared at the radio, throat dry. You didn't just call 314 Sycamore Lane. No, she said firmly. That address is inactive. Why? I clicked the mic off. Marla whispered, What the hell, Ethan? But I couldn't answer, because a few seconds later, the monitor in the back flickered on by itself. No patient connected. No power switch flipped. And across the screen, glowing faintly green, the same message appeared, each EDS NDKE Visiciores. I didn't tell Marla everything that night. I couldn't. She already thought I was losing it. But the more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. Equipment failed for no reason. Paperwork printing with missing times. Radios cutting out at exactly 3:14 a.m. on the dot. And the dreams. Every night, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, hearing the sound of rain against wood, the soft thump of small hands performing CPR, and a boy's voice whispering, "I's awake again." I started drinking coffee at midnight just to stay out of bed. I couldn't stand the silence anymore. It all came to a head on a stormy Thursday. Marla and I got dispatched to an abandoned warehouse downtown. Overdose, probable fatality. When we arrived, police had already taped the place off, but the officer waved us through. Just confirm and tag it, he said. No rush. Inside, the air smelled like mold and rust. The floor was scattered with broken glass and a single, flickering bulb swung from the ceiling. The body was at the center of the room, face down, hoodie pulled over the head. I knelt beside it, pulled back the hood, and froze. It wasn't the overdose victim we expected. It was the father from Sycamore Lane. His skin was the same gray pallor I remembered. His eyes are half open. His lips are blue. Marla, I whispered, call this in. She stepped closer, saw the face, and went rigid. Ethan. That's not possible. I know. We both stared in silence until the flickering bulb above us snapped off. The entire warehouse went black. I pulled my flashlight, beam trembling, and swept the room. The body was gone. Just gone. No drag marks. No sound. Nothing but empty floor and echoing darkness. Marla whispered, we need to go. Now. I didn't argue. We ran out, back into the rain. The police officer looked confused when he saw us. Where's the body? He asked. There wasn't one. I lied. He frowned. Dispatch said you requested medical clearance for a male. We didn't. I grabbed Marla's arm and pulled her toward the rig before he could finish. I didn't even start the paperwork. That night, I didn't sleep at all. 2 nights later, the power went out at the station. Backup generators kicked in, but only one monitor stayed lit. The defibrillator. Its screen glowed faint green, the ECG trace slowly rising and falling, though nothing was connected to it. I walked over, heart pounding. Marla, come look at this. She did, eyes wide. On the display, instead of vitals, were words scrolling across like a ticker. While you show LD heavy left sham, Marla backed away. Nope. I'm done. This is insane. She grabbed her jacket and left. I didn't stop her, because the moment she walked out, the words changed. She can tlpou. Then the ECG spiked, flatlined, and the machine shut off. Silence. Just the hum of emergency lights, the faint smell of ozone in the air, and then, faintly, from the dark corner of the room came a child's voice. He's awake again. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen, but when the power came back on, my radio chirped, a new message light blinked, a dispatch recording, timestamp 0304 Trinidad 8M. I pressed play. Static. Then a child's voice, please hurry. My dad's not breathing. My heart stopped. It was the exact same voice from that first night. But then, under the noise, another sound, my voice. Faint, but unmistakable. Unit 714 responding, Sycamore Lane. The same words I'd spoken weeks ago, except this recording was new. Dated that very night. That's when I realized the truth. We weren't just remembering the call. We were reliving it, again and again. I shut the radio off and sat there in the dark, my hands shaking. For the first time in my career, I felt something deeper than fear. A kind of cold inevitability. Like whatever had started that night on Sycamore Lane wasn't finished with me yet, and no matter what I did, it would keep calling. The days bled together after the blackout. Rain, shift, sleep that wasn't sleep, and the quiet hum of the bass that seemed to vibrate inside my teeth. Marla hadn't come back. She texted once, I need time off. After that, nothing. I told myself she'd quit, but part of me wondered if the thing that followed me from Sycamore had simply found her next. The captain caught me in the hallway the next morning. You look like hell, Ethan. Take a couple days. Fine, I said, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to records. Old dispatch archives were stored on a floor that always smelled faintly of mildew and toner. I pulled every file I could find for 314 Sycamore Lane. Paper copies going back decades. Most were mundane routine calls, minor injuries, one domestic disturbance. Then I found a folder thicker than the rest, edges curled from water damage. Inside, photos of the same house, blackened by fire. Date stamped June 15, 2018. 3 fatalities. Male 44, female 40, child 8. All ruled accidental smoke inhalation. The pictures made my stomach turn. The man's face was half obscured by soot, but I recognized the jawline, the eyes. The same man who'd been on the floor that night. The report said the fire started in the basement, accelerant unknown. And scrawled in the coroner's margin, nearly illegible: male victim sustained pre-mortem blunt trauma inconsistent with accident. I stared at the words until they blurred. I could almost hear Reeves whispering in my head, maybe he didn't stay that way. That afternoon I drove home, locked the door, and pulled out the portable radio I kept in my go bag. I tuned it to the EMS band. Static hissed, soft and constant. For a moment it was almost comforting, like white noise to drown the thoughts. Then, through the static, a breath, then a voice. "Ethan." I froze. "Who is this?" No answer. Just the sound of rain again, though it wasn't raining outside. Then a dull thump, like a body hitting wood. "You shouldn't have come." I yanked the batteries out and threw the radio across the room. It hit the wall, cracked open, and spilled silence everywhere. I stood there, shaking, heart hammering. The clock on the microwave blinked. 314 a.m. Sleep didn't come that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the boy, those glassy, unblinking eyes. At some point, I must have dozed off, because when I woke, there were wet footprints on the floor. Small ones, leading from the door to the couch. I checked the lock, still latched from the inside. No broken window. No dripping ceiling. Just those prints, fading slowly as I stared. I tried to tell myself they were mine, that I'd stepped in something, forgotten, but they were too small, child-sized. The next afternoon my phone rang, unknown number. When I answered, there was a pause, breathing, faint and uneven. "Marla?" I asked. A soft laugh, then a whisper. "You heard him too, didn't you? Where are you?" Static swallowed the line. Then the faint sound of a monitor beeping. The same pattern we used in the rig. 3 tones, then silence. "He won't stop until you finish the call," she said. "Finish what call?" But the line went dead. I called back. "Number invalid." By the 3rd day off, shift, I'd stopped pretending I was okay. I hadn't eaten properly in days. Coffee and adrenaline were all that kept me upright. I stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror. My face looked older. Eyes bloodshot, skin gray from exhaustion. Behind me, the light flickered once. In the reflection, for a split second, I saw movement. A figure standing in the hallway. A child-shaped shadow. I turned. Nothing there. When I looked back, something had appeared in the mirror. Letters traced in condensation, though the glass was dry. 314. I slammed the door and backed into the kitchen, shaking. My phone buzzed on the counter. A voicemail. From an unknown number. When I played it, I heard my own voice. Unit 714 responding, Sycamore Lane. Then, over my words, another voice whispered, "You still don't get it." I stopped going to work. The captain left messages. I didn't return them. I spent my nights piecing together the family's history. County records, property deeds, newspaper archives. The man's name was Thomas Grady, former paramedic, dishonorably discharged after a negligence complaint. The file didn't say what he'd done, but the notes from an internal review mentioned unethical resuscitation attempts. The woman, Elena Grady, filed for separation 2 months before the fire.